It's April 18th, noon, and I would just call the Whatcom County Fire Protection District 4 Board of Commissioners meeting to order. We've got a quorum. I guess the first thing that we should probably do is just say hi to our newest commissioner. Hi, Tim.
Welcome, Tim.
Oh,
Yeah, thanks for
glad to be joining you guys.
yeah, well, we are very happy to have you joining us.
Indeed.
So just, I mean, by way of introduction, we are kind of governed by Robert's Rules of Order. So we all have an equal voice here. Just as the chairman, it's just my responsibility to sort of facilitate, you know, the meeting and rule on motions and what's in order, what's out of order, although that rarely happens. And if anybody ever, you know, if we have to take action on something or somebody wants to take action on something, kind of formally, they would make a motion. Motions aren't acted on until there's a second. And so if a motion doesn't receive a second, then we just don't spend any time discussing it. If a motion is seconded, then I always, before we have a vote, the chairman would always or should always ask if there's any discussion, any further discussion on the motion before we would vote on it. So just because a motion is made and seconded, you know, don't ever feel like, oh, I still have questions or, you know, what's going on here. The chairperson should always ask for discussion first anyway. So, and on the agenda, we typically have a format that we cover. A lot of the business, the monthly business, we capture in what's called the consent agenda. And was that all emailed to you beforehand?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So typically then the idea of all the items in the consent agenda is that the commissioners would take time to review all of those items. And if there's anything in there that you have questions about or need to be highlighted before we would vote on approving the consent agenda, that would be the time to pull those out, those items out, which we'll be getting to here shortly. So any questions just so far, just about kind of how the meeting, and I know that was a really quick overview, but any questions or anything like that so far?
Not for mine. It's pretty straightforward.
Okay, yeah, good. Okay, so then did you want to spend 30 seconds, 30 minutes at all just talking about yourself, just introducing yourself? The meeting is streamed live. There may or may not be people watching it. It's also recorded. People might, you know, watch the recording later. So now would kind of be your opportunity to, you know, if you wanted to give a brief introduction, this would be a good time.
Sure. Be happy to do that, Commissioner Len. Johnson. I've lived in Whatcom County since 2004. Moved here from the Seattle area. I've lived in the district for about 13 years now, almost 14 years. And my wife and I have 3 sons that we raised here in the county, and investors. So I also have 2 daughters that are living in Bellingham and Seattle. So family that keeps me busy. Right now I'm the government affairs director for Ferndale Refinery. I've had that role for about over 3 years. Prior to that, I worked at the refinery in the environmental world, doing permitting compliance and have also worked for Phillips 66 as well as Chevron in Seattle and in Houston, Texas. So it's a little bit of my background. I don't have any specific experience. I am familiar with the incident command system, and I serve as the public information officer for the refinery when we activate our emergency management team. Outside of that, you know, in my free time, I like to golf. I like to hang out with my sons, doing crabbing and fishing, and I'm honored to be appointed as your interim commissioner, and I look forward to serving our district citizens and supporting Chief Van Veen and his team.
Great, thank you, Tim. Yeah, that was very, very well said, and we're very happy to have you as part of this group. So under the public comment, so nothing has changed due to Governor Inslee's latest proclamation. Members of the public will be able to hear the entire meeting via Zoom, except for executive session, but will not be allowed to speak or provide public comment. So that moves us to the consent agenda. All matters within the consent agenda have been distributed to each member of the Board of Commissioners for review, are considered routine, and will be enacted by one motion of the board with no separate discussion. If a separate discussion is desired, that item may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda by request. And part of the consent agenda includes the expense fund reserve for March, which was $104,676.56. Total expenditures for April, $450,750.59. Could I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
So then, Tim, it would be customary. I typically don't make the motions or second the motions if we have three people. So if Commissioner Cooley makes a motion and you agree that we ought to proceed, it would sort of fall to you to either second it. And then if you wanted to initiate a motion, then typically Commissioner Cooley would be the one to second it, or I could. Again, three-member board. It's a little bit, well, what's the word I'm looking for? Not automatic, but with three people and one chairman, it kind of limits to you and Steve kind of getting the business going.
Understood. I will second that motion.
So it was moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. So that takes us to unfinished business, RFA update. Steve or Jason, were you going to drive that part of it?
Sure. Commissioner Cooley, unless you want to go first, I've probably
Right
got
ahead.
the biggest update.
Go ahead.
You might have remember last month that Bruce Ansel, the chair of Board 21 of the D21 board, and Commissioner Cooley and Karen Reed and I met, kind of discussed what's next, and really that we're not going to be able to put anything in front of the voters before this time next year, spring of next year, and that this was the time to start to make those connections with the public and get the word out, and build our case with the public as to why we would need a levy lit increase, as well as work on the final touches of the RFA. In that time, I've been made aware of some potential annexations that are going to take place, probably beyond the word potential, some looming annexations that the city of Bellingham has in play now. And those could significantly impact District 4, as far as AV and revenue going forward. And tomorrow, after juggling schedules, tomorrow, Commissioner Land, Commissioner Ansel, and Chief Hewitt from Bellingham Fire are going to sit down and have the first discussion of what are we going to do? Because these annexations could leave District 4 with little to nothing, very small amount of revenue. And to be frank, I'm not sure that, I mean, any business decision, if you look at it from District 21's point of view, what's the point of taking on a bunch of rural area, that's not going to support itself tax-wise? Are we at the spot where city of Bellingham needs to step up and do something more for Fire District 4, sweeten the pot, to make this thing work? They can't keep Pac-Manning chunks off of our AV and not leaving the district with any recourse to staff or provide fire protection. In addition, that I have started to become more aware of and have sent Commissioner Land a very dry, boring document known as the 97 agreement, which it turns out that when it comes to annexations from cities, municipalities to fire districts, the RCW is very vague. So Whatcom County in 1997 came up with a more clarified document on how to do this and when it would be a city's responsibility to ultimately take over a fire district. Commissioner Land, I don't know if you had time to sit down and read that thing. If you had a good nap after you read it, it's very legalese and very dry.
I have not read it yet, but I do have it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's I've thumbed through it a few times and it's very, I don't quite fully understand it. I will give it to Mr. Quinn to start to digest, and as well as I've talked to District 21's attorney about it and what the implications are. But basically it outlines how that would work in Whatcom County. Now, it's an interesting point. This was done in 1997, so before the 1% property tax limitation was put into place. So it's the calculations for how a district would survive after those property tax limitations are put into place is not spelled out in this document. It used to be the fire districts could increase their tax revenue 6% a year. And whether that was right or wrong, I'm not here to debate that, but they could do it. Now they're limited to 1%, and we can't keep up with inflation. We have not kept up with inflation, and certainly not the last 2 years. And so starting tomorrow, we're gonna kind of jump off on a new venture to find out how are we going to mitigate this problem? How is the city going to mitigate this problem that it's kind of creating for this small fire district? And yeah, Chief Hewitt and I are in agreement that the city needs to help fix this. They can't. Yeah, it's Christmas, not a birthday, right? There's give and take. So that starts tomorrow. That's really my RFA report. There's not been much going on because we've been trying to learn as much as we can about the impact that these rather significant annexations could have.
Yeah. All right. Good summary. Commissioner Cooley, is that a hand?
It is. I just wanted to follow up and reiterate kind of some of the things that Chief was saying. My understanding, and I don't know if this is correct, but my understanding was that essentially the last time this happened to our district, where the city annexed a big portion of a portion of our district, there was not any financial compensation. Basically, my understanding is that we took it on the chin in District 4. So that's just a long way around saying if that's true and whether or not it's true, we definitely need, as the chief is basically saying here, we need to make sure that we can come out of this with an ability to survive as a district or something. So in other words, like you finished up saying, Chief, it's not Christmas season. This needs to be something where if we're going to remain as a district, and I don't know how big these annexations are, we need to have the tax base to do so, or at least funding to do so. So right. I'm glad to hear that you're considering that, Chief. That's that's very important, I think.
And just so you know that we were compensated. That's one of the things that this document does do is it memorializes that there has to be discussions between the city and the district, and there has to be a if one party or the other says this is a significant impact, you have to negotiate the impacts of that annexation. It also kind of nicely provides an arbitration clause if the two can't come to a reasonable agreement. It outlines, the next legal steps. I will tell you that I can't give you the exact number, but the compensation we received for the last annexation was cursory. I don't know the right word, but it was
Right.
it was not a 1-for-1.
Okay.
Maybe it was on a sliding scale, so each year it decreased a little bit, and it was only for a period of 4 years, I believe.
Okay. So is your, if I may, Chairman Land, this is obviously, it has an important impact on our whole RFA plan. So it's kind of this is the next item on that agenda, right? Is to figure this out before we move forward with the RFA planning.
Yes, I think so. I mean, like Jason said, first meeting is tomorrow. It just sort of came across our radar. So I've got my marching orders that I just heard from you, and to make sure that's covered, or at least we start talking about it. And yeah, I'll report back what I learned, and if it's exigent, then we might need to meet sooner than 1 month from now. And if not, then I guess I can give you an update next month.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you. Can I also get a copy of that document that you sent?
Oh, absolutely. I'll send it to all three of you. Yes. Sorry. And just
I'd love to peruse it.
Just so you know, Commissioner Cooley, I just felt like this instance rose above the RFA. It rose to the survival of District 4, essentially. So that's why I went to Commissioner Land. So
totally. No, I get
Okay.
that. Yeah, no problem at all. I just want to be clear that, no, you're right. We got to take care of this up front.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Well, and the other thing on that, Steve, when Jason asked or mentioned this to me, I was actually also just trying to, share some of the work, because I know you've been doing the additional RFA meetings, and you spent a lot of time helping, search for the vacant commissioner person. And so I guess I kind of felt like I needed to also carry some of the weight and start going to these extra meetings. And so I volunteered myself for that. Those too.
No problem at all. Yeah. Nope. That's all good here.
Okay. Does that take us to the Station 12 maintenance update?
yes, and unfortunately, Chief Ward's on a.
Tim.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tim. I didn't.
No worries. Just to ask a clarifying question about that. Do we know that the timing of these potential annex actions? Is it expected in the next few months, or?
There's a tiny one that won't affect us at all. That should, I've been told, will be completed in 6 months. That's up off the guide, near the guide, Kelly and Klein, kind of that area. It's like 0.68% of the fire district's AV. It's inconsequential. The next one is 12 to 18 months away, and that is in the Hillsdale area. So kind of McLeod all the way down to Mount Baker Highway. I would eat Commissioner Cooley's house, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
So it's from McLeod straight up to Britton Road, and then all the way down to Mount Baker Highway. And that is I cannot remember the percentage, so I don't want to quote it, but it's a much more significant portion. And that would be, like I said, 12 to 18 months away.
Okay, thank you.
And it sounds like that'll encompass our main station as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which we can still It's weird, but you can still,
Yeah.
it's still yours. Yeah.
Hmm. Do you know tomorrow's meeting, do you think Chief Hewitt will, will there actually be a map to look at and numbers to go over?
Yes. Yep. We'll be able to go back. He's got several maps that show percentages and when those annexations were done. He's got, the city is really good at record keeping, and so we'll be able to see the historical march of the city into District 4.
Okay, well, and maybe for the other commissioners' benefit is whatever we come out of, tomorrow, whatever Chief Hewitt decides to share with us. Maybe it wouldn't be me, but maybe then, you or somebody on your staff can disseminate that information so that they can have it as well.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, good questions, Tim. All right, anything else before we move on to the maintenance? Okay.
No.
Actually, as far as maintenance goes, Chief Ward's on a fire right now, and he has the details of his report. I don't even want to try because it's too big.
Okay.
So we'll have to, sorry, I'll tell you what, I'll have him provide you like a more detailed email report. And Commissioner Johnson, just not to keep pointing you out, but just don't, when you get an email like that, don't reply all. You can only reply to the original sender, not to all commissioners. So if you have questions or something like that, so.
Will do.
Yeah, and the reasoning behind that, Tim, I don't know if you've had your public meetings orientation webinar, whatever it is. The reasoning behind that is under the Open Public Meetings Act, we just need to be sure that the three of us, or even two of us, because two of us would be a quorum, is we're not engaging in any kind of discussion, or we're not conducting any business that wouldn't be in view of the public like this meeting is. So emails from a commissioner to the others that are purely kind of generic, that don't necessarily elicit a response or discussion, or they're not conducting really any business, those are okay. We've had that reviewed by our attorney. We just want to make sure we're not engaging in any kind of active discussion, debate, conversation.
Yep.
Understood.
All right.
So then, maintenance, we'll table that and await further information. Smith Road, Station 13.
Yes. So in the board packet was a copy. This is now, mind you, this is the first draft of the state's lease. So it's weighted heavily on their side. In talking with the gentleman from DNR, he recognizes this, chuckles about it. He said, don't shoot the messenger.
Yeah.
It's what the AG's office has us send out first.
Yeah.
So if you'd like, I'll share my screen. That might be the easiest way to do it. But you also got a copy of let's see, Joe Quinn's letter is the best way to do this.
Yeah.
I agree 100% with what Mr. Quinn said. Obviously, he's the attorney. But we're going to, I would suggest that we reply with no, you go ahead and pick up all the utilities, the garbage, the power, you're using it, you do it. You maintain the yard, you maintain the cleanliness of the station. Any capital projects, new roof, new, degrading concrete or that needs to come to us, but everyday typical rental expenses would be paid by the state. And that would be my retort to them. If you're comfortable with me and Chief Ward handling that, okay, I will bring you back the next revision then. Commissioner Cooley?
Yeah.
Sorry, I figured now that there's more of us, it'd be better to raise our hand if we want to say something. Anyway, yeah, Chief, if what you're saying is that, is there anything in Mr. Quinn's letter that you think we won't implement or that you disagreed with? Or are you planning on proceeding with getting the suggested changes he listed made?
No,
Okay.
I don't have any problem with what he wrote down at all. It completely makes sense to me. And
Okay.
I wish I could say all of them jumped out at me the first time I read the lease, but certainly the us picking up all the utilities and maintenance, that definitely jumped out. So
Yeah.
yeah, Chief Ward and I will sit down and go use his draft or his memo to us, and then go line by line through that contract and retort. I am waiting. There's no good comparables for cost or for the actual rental. The gentleman from DNR was sending me something. Once he gets it from the AG's office, he's going to send it to me. He said it's probably the best type of document that he's used. It's kind of a internal commercial type, comparison document. So if any of you gentlemen have any idea about what, a home with a garage or a workspace with garage would be worth, I'll take it. But I was kind of go pivot off his document or use his document as kind of at least a starting place for the actual monthly lease.
Yeah, as a starting place, that sounds good to me.
Okay.
Great.
That's really it. They're obviously still interested. They, we're moving ahead, full steam ahead as far as on the states. Yeah, as far as fast as they move. So.
Okay, thanks. New business. Does anybody have any new business? I don't.
Not at this time.
None for me either.
Unless I missed it, we didn't have any correspondence.
Well, and I wasn't sure where we could bring this up. I just wanted to point out that letter, I think that went to all districts on the changes to the open meetings law. I just wanted to bring that up and make sure that we were all aware. It looks to me after reading that document and I think he might even have said that, or he or she, whoever wrote the letter, might even have said it in there, that the new changes are essentially going to require us to have public comment period in almost every meeting. I mean, it specifically says when you're going to take final action during a meeting, you have to have a public comment period from now on, or from whatever date. I think it was a March date. Yeah, March 24th. But I just want to be sure that we're all aware. It looks like we are going to have public comment. No, that's effective June 9th. I'm sorry, I'm looking at it right now. So anyway, as of June 9th, we're going to have to probably have a public comment at most of our meetings, unless we're not going to take any action at all. And we know that ahead of time. So.
Yeah. On my water commission board, even through COVID, we always still maintained a public comment portion of the meeting. We just put it on the agenda. Yep. And, if people were logging in or in the waiting room or whatever, when we got to that item on the agenda, I would say, now is the time for public comment. And then I would ask whoever's moderating the meeting, is there anybody that's in the waiting room, or is anybody waiting to speak? Yes or no? And then we listen to whatever, somebody wants to say or bring up. Again, it's not necessarily a Q&A. It's not designed to be a Q&A for commissioners. And it's not as if it's a public hearing or anything like that, but it's public comments. And then once they're done, or if nobody's there, then I just say the public comment portion of the meeting is now closed, and then we just move down the agenda. So it's pretty straightforward. I'm kind of used to it. So yeah, when the time comes, we should definitely open up our meetings to public comment.
Yeah, so it says by that date in June. And yeah, so we'd obviously have to change that top paragraph on our normal agendas. So, okay, right. See everybody nodding. So just wanted to make sure that was on our radar.
Yes, and I had that to discuss. Jenny had handed me that to discuss during when we talk about the board attendance or meeting attendance for the next board meeting. So
It looked to me like everything else in that letter we're already doing. I didn't go through it with a fine tooth comb, but we're already recording our meetings. We're already posting them for people to see. So unless I missed something, that looked to me like the only substantive change we were going to have to make.
and that we can do that, you know, as Commissioner Land said, really easy here on Zoom.
Easy.
If we what I was going to say is if we have a physical meeting, that becomes more problematic because it's going to require some infrastructure we don't have as far as recording and being able to post the meeting and all those things. So
yeah,
I would prefer we continue to do it on Zoom, and yes, just post the Zoom link and allow people to join in.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you probably saw this too, but following up on what you just said, I think once the emergency goes away, the declared emergency for the state, we're going to have to go back to in person. So I believe that's what it said. So yeah, we might have to think about some changes there, but
Right.
we're good for now. Okay, thank you, Chief.
All right, any other new business? Correspondence. Oh, I think that actually came up in correspondence, my bad. Anything else under that item?
No.
So board meeting attendance for May 16th. I've got it on my calendar. Still work for everybody? Yep.
Yes.
Like it okay?
Yes, works for me.
Yep.
Oh, and I already signed, I know I'm usually the one slowing down the paperwork for Jenny, but I signed all the stuff this morning, Jason. You can let her know.
Yep.
And I will head down directly after the meeting to do that.
Yeah, so Tim, we've got, well, Jason, has somebody explained to Tim where all that stuff is?
Jenny did explain to him
Okay.
where it is. I'm happy to meet you down there just to double check if you like.
Now Jenny provided me with the information to get into the station and where
Okay.
those documents are located. So I have not yet made it down there, but I'll do that this week. Is there a certain time period where we have to have it signed by?
Yes, I need it ASAP, like by tomorrow morning. It's
Okay.
possible.
For payroll purposes, right?
To get it back to the county for payroll and for vouchers, we need to get it back to them. Needs to be scanned to them tomorrow. So
Okay. I can get there this afternoon and do that then.
perfect. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Anything anybody wants to get on the agenda that we might not normally see for next month? Again, I'll be sure to, pass on whatever comes out of tomorrow's meeting, either sooner than next month or next month. At a minimum, you'll get the information that we get. That's the only thing I can think of.
I think the three things that are in unfinished business will arise again next month. And
Yep.
if anything comes up, we can add it.
Okay. Before we have a motion to adjourn, is there anything else from anybody on anything? All right. I think, would somebody want to, hey, Tim, you want to make a motion to adjourn?
I will move to adjourn.
I will second his motion.
It was moved and seconded that we adjourn. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.